Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time finding my channel, oops, you just landed in the right place. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. So today we're going to be talking about something interesting, and that is blackouts. Like, blackouts in the actual sense means permanent memory loss. But like, we know that we're talking about examination here. We know that we're talking about test here. So temporary loss of what you have read. Yeah, that's what we're looking at today. So sit back, relax, because we're going to be talking about why people have blackouts, what you should do if you have a blackout in exam or if you go blank, and how to prevent it. So we're first going to be talking about why people go blank or experience blackouts in exam. So read these countries: Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Togo. Now pause this video and try to repeat all the countries that I just mentioned. Pause the video and try it. Anyway, if you tried it, I'm very sure that you could not mention all the 15 countries. I mean, except you already know the ECOWAS countries offhand. That brings me to my first point. Many times, we just make sure we understand what we are reading, but we don't know. All those countries there, you know now that they are ECOWAS countries. You know those countries. You're probably familiar with all the 15 countries, but still you could not mention all the 15 countries. Why? Because you did not know. To know something is to be able to reproduce it without looking. Many times the reason this happens is because when we read, we do not do active recalling. So now, if you were reading the 15 countries, you will close the book and then try to remember the 15 countries, and then you peep at it and keep on mentioning. You never really actually try to mention the 15 countries and see if you can mention everything without peeping. We just go through the 15 countries, we look at it, and we're like, okay, we already know it. Or we are trying to recall the 15 countries and you are still looking at your notes, right? So we never really do active recalling. So the number one reason people have blackouts in exam hall is that they never really knew it, but they thought they did. You never really knew the 15 countries, but if it came out in a test and you remember only say 10, you will be like, oh, I blacked out, I did not remember the remaining 5. Meanwhile, your brain did not actually take cognizance of the remaining 5. Do you understand what I'm saying? So my first point is that many times when we think we black out in exam, or when we think we went blank in an exam, that didn't happen. Our brain just never received the information. How do you prevent that? Active recalling. Well, I'll come back to that. Now, the second reason people black out is that you are cramming or reading too much information, so it is becoming overwhelming for your brain. Now, it is okay to cram sometimes. There are some times that you would have to cram because there's really no way you can do it but to cram it, right? But then when you cram too much, it just confuses your brain, and then it probably brings out some and doesn't bring out some, and all of that. It's just overwhelming for the brain, because when we feed our brain with 100% information, by the time we expect it to reproduce it, it actually cannot reproduce 100% information again. When you cram too much, when you read a lot of things and don't understand it or just know it, when you cram it, you're trying to make sure that you say that definition the exact way that the lecturer or the writer in that textbook gave that definition. Meanwhile, you forget that that definition was just that author's head. The same way you can use your own head to give the definition. once you understand the main point. Do you get my point? So when you cram too much, it becomes overwhelming for the brain, and it is possible that it forgets some. If you have taken notice, you will realize that oftentimes the courses that you experience this blackout in, that you go blank in, are usually courses that you do not find the easiest, courses that are not really the simplest, courses that you don't really like. They are usually the courses that we experience blackouts in. So this brings me to another reason why we experience blackout, which is that you found the question difficult. So let's say the moment you received your question paper, you browsed through all the questions, which you should do, and then out of like 7 or 6 questions, you don't know 5 of them. You're automatically tensed, stressed, and anxious. So it's possible that everything that you read, you go blank on them. So that's another reason why people go blank. Then another reason people go blank, or why you go blank, is because you did not revise. So you actually did read, but then you did not revise. Like a night to the exam, morning of the exam, maybe you woke up late and you just dashed into the exam all just like that, or you were so confident in your reading and your success for that paper that you chose not to revise and all of that. It is possible that you can forget 1 or 2 things, especially if they have to do with mentions. If it's not just explanation or definition, if it has to do with listing things like the 15 countries of ECOWAS, it's possible that you can forget some things. Another reason why you may go blank is because you were reading even when you were tired. Now, take for instance, you are reading, it's late in the night, you are tired, but you don't want to sleep because you fear that if you sleep, you wake up the next morning of the exam and you'll not be able to finish what you are reading. Or if you set your alarm for you to sleep for 2 hours, you'll put off your alarm after 2 hours and you'll not wake up, right? So you're like, oh, let me just scroll through social media for like 1 hour, then I'll keep on reading. Now you forget that when you are tired of reading, scrolling through social media for 1 hour is not the rest that you need at that point. You scroll through social media to compensate yourself for the work that you've done. Maybe you just finished reading and you're like, let me take care of myself. And then you scroll aimlessly through social media. You scroll through social media. I'm talking about if it's not for anything valid, because you are less busy. You scroll through social media because you just want to relax and all. You don't scroll through social media because your brain is tired and you need rest. I mean, we're not talking about 5 minutes break here. We're talking about you needing to sleep for like 30 to 1.5 hours kind of sleep. So scrolling through social media does nothing. If anything, you're stressing your eyes and indirectly stressing your brain and all, and you're still tired. Do you get? So when you're done scrolling through social media, you're probably still tired, but you don't know because you only switched activity. When you scroll through social media and I say, oh, let me come back and come and start reading, my dear, you are still tired. Your brain is still tired, even if you do not think you're still tired. So when you are reading, you think that you are reading, but your brain is not storing anything. Do you get? So for instance, now I'm sleepy, but I'm like, oh, let me just finish this last page. It's remaining just 1 page. And then I'm rushing to just read through that 1 page just to go and sleep. Now, you did that to fulfill your righteousness. Finish the last page to sleep. But did your brain actually store that 1 page? Did your brain actually, did they actually stick? Because now when you get to the exam hall and you don't recall, you feel like you went blank, but your brain did not actually store the information. Another reason people black out in exam is because of anxiety or stress or hunger. Right, you are reading, you are hungry, but you're like, no, I'm going to force myself to finish this topic before I eat. Go and eat. See, once I'm reading and I'm already contemplating, should I go and eat or not? It's time to eat. So if you're hungry, if you're anxious, if you're stressed, take a break, sleep, rest, relax. Do you get? And then Yeah, being burnt out also contributes to people having blackouts. Now let's move into the second part of the video, which is what to do if you have a blackout in exam. I mean, by the time you watch this video and you put everything into practice, it shouldn't happen again. But let's just be on the safe side. You see people say, breathe in for 4 seconds, then breathe out for 4 seconds, then stand up, go to the toilet and come back, and drink water and do all of that. You're wasting your time in the exam hall. But anyway, probably have worked for some people. What you should not do is to submit a blank paper. Like you're like, oh, I don't recall, so there's nothing I'll do, then just submit a blank paper. Don't ever submit a blank paper, because when you submit a blank paper, you are accepting defeat when the battle is still on. You are throwing in the towel when you still have a chance. Do you get? So don't ever submit a blank paper. I would never recommend that. And the number 2 thing you do not want to do, or you should not do if you have a blackout, is to start crying or panicking. Number 1, it destabilizes you, and there's a very high probability you will not remember anything again once you start crying or panicking. And number 2, nobody cares in the exam hall that you are crying. Do you know the truth? Like, I'm trying to be honest with you. If you're crying in the exam hall, everybody is writing. Nobody drops their pen and paper and be like, oh, why are you crying? Maybe the invigilator or the lecturer that cannot help you. Everybody starts caring for you after the exam, after they fought and finished their own battle. Then they're like, oh, I saw you crying, why were you crying, and all of that. But in the exam, nobody cares. So why should you start crying? Why should you be destabilized? Why should you throw in the towel when everybody is still fighting, do you get, for their grades? So you should do the same. Don't panic, don't cry, don't submit a blank paper. Rather, what you should do when you experience a blackout is, number 1, forget the notes. The reason you think you're having a blackout is that you can't recall what you read. Now, the number 1 thing to do is to stop trying. If you have tried and it doesn't work, stop trying. Like, stop trying to picture the notes the way you read it. Stop trying to rack your brain. Now, do this instead. Think about when the lecturer was teaching that course. Can you remember when the lecturer taught that course? Can you remember anything particular or spectacular that they said? Do you recall a funny moment in the class? Like, maybe he said something and everybody started laughing, or he said something and you found it surprising. Can you recall any event around it, right, that would help you recall? Now relax. There is a 98.9% chance that you will probably not recall it the way you crammed it or the way you read it, right? So don't beat yourself up. That's why I said forget what you read. Don't be trying to impose it on how you remember. Do you get? Now, if you don't recall anything that happened in the class, if you don't recall the class or anything as such, relax. Step 2, imagine that you are speaking to your sibling, maybe your brother, your sister, or your cousin. You are probably speaking to them in the most casual form, or your friend. Now imagine you are trying to explain that question to them, that topic to them. Blackout is not recalling it, so that means you've read it. You would have an idea about it if you didn't have the blackout, right? So now imagine you're trying to tell your sibling or your friend in the most casual way that topic, that answer, what that question is trying to say. How will you say it? So let's say, for instance, I learned that the definition of culture is the way of life of a group of people in a particular setting. Let's say that's what I put in my brain, that's what I know, or that's what I crammed. Now I'm in the exam hall and I don't recall that culture is the way of life of a group of people in a particular setting. I'm not going to beat myself up. Do you know why? Because on a normal day, when I'm speaking with someone and the person says culture, I know what the person is trying to say. So what I'm trying to do now is to think of the meaning of culture in the most casual way, in my own words. Okay, I can't recall what I crammed or what I learned or how I read it. Now, what is culture? How people behave, how people act, who they are, what makes them up. Culture is what a Yoruba man does that makes him a Yoruba man. Do you get? That's what you're going to write. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what you're going to write, not a blank paper. Now, when you write that, even if you don't get the actual mark of culture is a group of people living in a particular setting, you're not going to get 0 like someone who submits a blank paper. Now, surprisingly, you might get the same mark for that definition you crammed because you chose to use your own words, and the lecturer or marker is probably impressed that you chose to use your own words, that you chose to explain in a simple form that any other person that never knew what culture meant will understand. But then the problem is that when you leave the exam hall, because you did not write it the same way you crammed it, you start thinking you failed. You start thinking, and that's why sometimes we go through many phases during a particular examination and we're going to pass, and then we see our results and we're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Do you know why? Because you still wrote something, and that something makes sense. You're just beating up yourself simply because it wasn't exactly what you crammed. You see what I'm saying? So life is not hard. Try to think of that word, that meaning, that whatever you're trying to explain in the most casual form, like you're explaining to a child, and say it that way. Think it in your head and write it in the most structured form. Then another thing you want to do if you are having a blackout is probably answer the questions in the order of confidence. Now, the one that you think that you don't have any blackout for, you didn't go blank for, or the blanking out is minimized, you want to answer that one first. While you're answering it, you might remember or start remembering 1 or 2 things as regards the difficult one, and then jot it out quickly, write bullet points immediately you're remembering. Or as you're answering the ones that you are having blackouts in, you can leave a few lines. By the time you are done with your exam, you are going through it, you can remember something, and you don't want to remember and now there's no space to write it, so you can leave a few lines for you to go back to it and all of that. Let's go to the last part of this video, which is how to prevent blackouts. Number 1, don't study with anxiety. You're reading and you are scared that, oh my god, you're going to fail, you will not remember. You're reading and you're like, what if I don't remember this thing? Have a success mindset. You are not reading to fail. If you wanted to fail, you will not read. So if you are reading, don't ask yourself, what if you fail? Don't ask yourself, will you still pass? Do you get? Because the moment you are doing that, you are subconsciously entertaining fear, and that fear finds a front seat that even when you are in the exam hall about to write, it comes in, it shows up and just blurs your memory, right? So have a success mindset. Don't read with what ifs in mind. What if I fail? What if I don't recall? What if I do this? If you are trying to recall and you are not remembering, that's just a call for you to know that you need to put in more effort, not for you to start thinking, what if you fail? Don't study when you're too tired. Sleep, even if it's 30 minutes. So once you are disciplined, whatever you set your mind to achieve, you're going to achieve it. Don't read when you're anxious. Don't read when you're too tired. Don't read when you are hungry. That's the least you can do. Another thing you should do to prevent having blackout is active recalling. When you read finish, close the book and just say it. Like, okay, you're trying to talk to your friend. You're trying teach the table, teach the chair, teach the phone, teach anything. Just teach the air. Can you teach it? Because if you cannot teach non-living things, there's no way you're going to explain it to a human being. So if you cannot teach the air or the table, there's no way you're going to write something that will make sense to the lecturer. So do active recalling. Active recalling is trying to remember without reference to your notes, without reference to any other material. You're trying to check if truly you know. Do you get? Then change environment per time. Don't sit down in one place and read for 10 hours straight. That's not a general rule though, because it works for some people. But then if you are somebody who maybe you blacked out once or twice, you don't want it to happen, or it's becoming a continuous thing, don't read for a long number of hours in one place. Don't stay there in one place. Change environment. Read in your room for 2 hours, then go to the library for another 2 hours, then go to the common room for another 2 hours. I don't know wherever you read, but I'm just trying to say don't stay down in one place for many hours to study. Another way to prevent blackouts is to read in attractive settings, wear nice clothes, read in nice places. It just helps your brain to, I don't know how to explain it. Then lastly, study with events, experiences, imaginations, and mnemonics. So let me give an instance. When I was very little, like maybe primary school or junior school, I can't remember when exactly now, I could not tell the difference between minimize and maximize. If you tell me today that minimize is small, maximize is big, by tomorrow, best believe I've forgotten. So what I did to forget, what I did to always remember is that I told myself, okay, minimize, meaning like mean, to be wicked is to be mean. If somebody is wicked in this life, they can never be a big person. They are going to be small. God will not lift them up because they are wicked. So I was like, okay, mean will be small. And obviously opposite, maximize is to be big. Do you get? So that was how I knew minimize small, maximize big. Also vertical and horizontal, I always forget. If you tell me to do vertical is like this, horizontal is like this, the next day I forgot. I'm like, which one is vertical, which one is horizontal? So what I did was that, like horizon, normally when people say, oh, broaden your horizon, like broaden your horizon, that's what I do. So horizon is the one on surface level, then vertical is the other one. So that's what I just, funny experiences and stuff that peculiar to you or the environment that you were at the moment that you were learning it or something like that. You get, it helps. And then mnemonics is like Bola bought something for, because what you are learning starts with B, B. That's a Bola bought. You get what I'm trying to say? That's mnemonic. And acronyms is maybe like those 15 countries of ECOWAS now. You just like carry the first letters or the first two letters and just use it to form one funny or silly word, or coincidentally a sense-making word, and you learn it like that. So I'm sure that by the time you're done watching this video, you cannot have blackout again. You can't have blackout again. Check it. Thank you very much for watching my video. I've come to the end of this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification, and recommend this video to someone who needs it. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.